A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned on a post that I'd taken and passed the 3 Nvidia AI infrastructure exams. And ever since then, I've had a ton of requests asking what material I used to pass. Was it worth the money? Tell me! So that's what we're going to look at today. AI, without doubt, certainly the coolest kid on the block at the moment, is affecting everything and everyone. Those expensive GPUs, they need critical communication between them. And that communication is the central nervous system of the AI infrastructure, which is, of course, the network. But it's not just one network. There's the scale-up network, which is the communication between those GPUs within the same GPU domain. Then there's the scale-out or east-west or back-end network, which is the communication between those GPU domains. And then you've got the front-end or north-south network, which is often converged with the storage. And then, of course, you've got that all-important out-of-band network, which for all of us engineers know is absolutely critical for getting back into that environment if you have any issues with the inbound environment. But all those networks, they're configured very differently and optimized very differently. And it's not just configuration of the networks. You've got to know how to make all of those networks inherently secure at every layer of the stack and how they perform in a multi-tenanted environment, ensuring that tenant A, whatever they're doing, does not impact tenant B. So where do you learn all this stuff? So luckily, there's a lot of information out there. We're going to look at what I used, again, to pass these infrastructure exams, but this isn't a definitive list. I'm a huge believer in community. So if there's anything you know about that I haven't referenced here, please let others know in the comments. So we keep talking about this AI infrastructure, but what is actually its role? Effectively, it's just to keep those expensive GPUs working in an optimum manner. And in the majority of the AI infrastructure that I see, the GPUs at the heart of it are Nvidia GPUs. So that makes a lot of sense as to start your AI training, learning Nvidia infrastructure. We're talking about 3 Nvidia AI infrastructure certifications today, but there are a lot more than that, generally a lot further up the stack. So if you want to go into data science or LLMs, a lot more of the theory behind AI infrastructure, then they may be the certifications for you. I'm an engineer at heart, and I'm involved in networking, so we're talking about the infrastructure ones today. The order that I did them in was networking, AI ops, and AI infrastructure. Probably about the same order of difficulty I found them. I'm a networking guy, 30 years of networking experience, hence I found the networking one the easiest. You may have a different background, so you may find them in a different order. One thing to mention, these 3 infrastructure certifications we're talking about are due for a refresh fairly shortly, probably in the next couple of months. It's now early March, so the AI Ops one I think is getting refreshed first, and that refresh is the introduction of a lab element of the exam. So you'll have to do some practical demonstration in order to pass the exam. So AI Ops first, and I think it's coming for the other 2 fairly shortly after that. So again, that may influence your order in which to take them. So we'll look at the official links first of what I used to be studying. Don't worry about writing any of them down. I'll link them all in the description of this video. After that, I'll give you some tips and tricks. I worked out the other day that I think I've taken about 300 IT exams. So I've picked up a few tips and tricks along the way. So I'll leave them at the end.
Okay, so the first link is the official NVIDIA documentation. So it's nvidia.com. Don't worry about writing the links down. I'll link them all in the description. But if we go to the certification link, you'll see the 3 that we're talking about today, the infrastructure ones, which is infrastructure, AI ops, and AI networking. To get a little overview of the 3 exams there. If you click into one of the exams, you get a bit more of a breakdown. It shows you the number of questions, the cost, for example, duration of the exam. If we go down, we'll see the exam blueprint, which shows you how the exam is made up of various topics. So, for example, you'll see here that 5% of the exam is made up of the physical layer management. So again, I will generally use this as a high-level reference. So if 5% of the exam is made up for the physical layer management, I'll generally dedicate 5% of my study time to the physical layer management. But again, it depends what your particular comfort zone is. If you already know a particular subject very well, obviously you can spend less time studying that and focus more on the ones that you're less familiar with. We've also got the recommended training. The ones on the left are generally video on demand training. The ones on the right are where it says workshop, are generally live instructor-led workshops, generally virtually delivered. So again, if you click learn more. If there's any plans, it will take you to the schedule. So you can see there's one plan for March, one plan for April. But again, have a look at the time zones to make sure they sit in with your various time zone. Probably the most important thing here is the study guide. So again, all study guides are free. So if you click to the study guide, again, it will show you the various topics and then suggested reading by topic. So going to the physical layer management, we've already discussed that was 5% of the exam. So I'll give you suggested readings for that particular element of the exam. Again, all these are hyperlinked, and again, all of them are free. So for example, if you want to go through and see what BCM Administrator Manual is, just give that a click. It'll take you straight to the NVIDIA BCM Administration Manual, and you can download it. Just click your little save button there, and you can download all these PDFs. I'll show you what I do with them a bit later, and obviously rinse and repeat for each of the topics you want to learn. And then when you're ready to schedule your exam, you just go into the cert site, click on this register for exam button. That will take you straight into the Certiverse platform where you can schedule your exam. This is where you pay for it as well. You can reschedule it. Once you've booked it, if you find that nearer the time you're not ready, you can just reschedule it with no cost. You can also do a validation check to make sure the computer you're on is capable of running the exam. I found Certiverse fairly tolerant. I've had some issues with Pearson VUE exams, certainly running on a work laptop, for example, where you've got so many services running, remote access, team sites, where it's just constantly failing to validate your device. Whereas I found Certiverse, it runs it in its own little portal, and it's generally pretty good. Normal taking test rules apply. You will have to have a virtual proctor online, and they'll generally ask you for a video of your room, proving your identification, all that sort of normal things. Okay, so next up is the NVIDIA Academy, which I probably found the most useful of all the links we're going to talk about. So this is a paid site. When I did it, I think it was $500 for all-you-can-eat Platinum Pass. I checked it the other day, and it looks to me like it's come down to $250. So you've already saved half of your price there. You can do per course costs. So I think the first one I checked was like $50 if you don't want to buy the Platinum Pass for access to all courses. So you can do it on a pay-as-you-go basis. But I found this really useful. There's dozens of courses all aligned to the NVIDIA curriculum. So if we go to the catalog, for example, do a search, do a DPU, we're going to have a learn up on Bluefield DPU administration. So you can see there, it breaks it up into nice units with a knowledge verification quiz after each session. So at the end of that, you should be very familiar with Bluefield administration, for example. Have a look at the ones I've been doing. InfiniBand, Data Center, AI Essentials. So thoroughly recommend NVIDIA Academy. Okay, so next up we have NVIDIA Air. Again, really helpful. Best thing about NVIDIA Air is it's absolutely free. It's SaaS-based, so it's not reliant on you having huge amounts of resources locally in your PC. I use it a lot. Probably the most thing I used it for in the early days is just learning Cumulus Linux. One thing to say about NVIDIA Air is it only does Spectrum-X Ethernet switches. So if you want to have play about with InfiniBand, for example, so you can't do that with NVIDIA Air. Also with NVIDIA, you can simulate hosts, you can simulate DPUs. So all things you can't generally get easy access to in your own lab. So definitely worth playing about with NVIDIA Air. So for example, with NVIDIA Air, you can create a simulation. You can either roll your own build your own simulation, or you can pick predefined simulation from their marketplace. So for example, if you want to learn EVPN, just pick that lab. So plenty to choose from. Again, some of the scales of these are quite large, so you might have quite a number of switches and hosts to configure. We have a look at the simulations I've got currently loaded, simulation list. So that was a build your own lab I created just to play about with some EVPN configs. This one was from the marketplace. Again, we have a quick look at this one. So this was the topology. Just use the pop-outs there. Show you the topology so you know what kit you're playing with and how it's configured. So if we wanted to have a look at leaf switch 1 there, for example, we just go and find it in our list. 1. We'll give you the credentials to log into the switch. So there you go, Cumulus and Linux 1. And you can have a play about with the various commands. So interfaces, for example. So again, really helpful for learning the switch commands. And once you get familiar with NVIDIA Air, it's really good for real world situations. You can preload real configurations on there, so you can effectively pre-configure a whole Spectrum X environment before it's even delivered to site. And then you can export all the configurations off NVIDIA Air onto the real kit. You can also enable remote access straight into this environment. So you can integrate it with your own automation tools like Ansible, Puppet, Chef, for example. So again, when we're talking about the sort of volume of switches we generally do in an AI infrastructure, it's not just half a dozen. Sometimes there's hundreds, sometimes thousands of switches in these environments. So configuring them manually just isn't an option. So it's great to be able to integrate them into your own automation platform and have a play about with them. Also, from a management point of view, you can launch things like NetQ. If you want to have a play about with the management interfaces and the health check of your Ethernet fabric, you can absolutely do that through NVIDIA Air. So yeah, highly recommend. Get familiar with NVIDIA Air. It's absolutely free and absolutely essential for getting to know this kit. Okay, the last few links that I will mention, I won't go into them in any detail because they're not available to everyone. But if you are fortunate enough to work for an NVIDIA partner, you will be able to get access to these additional 3 links. You've got the NPN Portal there, which is some great product-specific training, things like DGX, NVL72, for example. You've also got the Deep Learning Institute. That's some quite heavy data science courses available. And then you've got the NVIDIA Partner Portal, which contains all of those RAs, those reference architectures that all of us AI consultants live and die by to make sure our designs are compliant.
Okay, so that covers the links. I mentioned earlier in the video that I had some general tips for the exam. So these are the exam as a whole. I found quite refreshing. NVIDIA don't tend to try and catch you out with double negatives. Things like, which of the below options are least likely not to be causing your issue. Those sort of questions which you've got fairly used to. Just trying to catch you out. Didn't see too much of that. You can go back and forward in the exam. Sometimes a later question can remind you what a previous question answer was, or even give you the answer if you're lucky. Okay, so my next general tip would be, tie your ego to it. Let people know you're going to attempt this certification. Use study groups. There's groups on LinkedIn. There's YouTube videos out there. Twitter is a great, or X as it's now called, is a great resource for finding people of like minds to form study groups with, and it really does help, really does focus your study.
Okay, tip 2, and probably the best kept secret in IT for learning material, is probably my personal favorite learning material at the moment, which is Notebook LM. It's absolutely free for most of what you'll need. It's developed by Google. It's a SaaS platform, so you can access it on your phone, on your desktop, on your laptop, whatever device you want to connect to it. Take it with you on the go. Absolutely fantastic. So if we have a look at what notebooks I've currently got on the go, and one of them happens to be MCP certification. So if we go into that, great thing about Notebook LM is that you upload to it certain validated sources that you're happy with. I generally only upload to it validated vendor material, so I know it's good. I know the details in there are correct. I'm not going to get false information, hallucinations from untrusted sources out on the internet. So again, it will only really reference what you give it to reference. So I generally pile anything on and over about it. So for example, I've got here all the NCP blueprints that we pulled through from the NVIDIA Documentation site. So again, you can query that, you can reference those, you can create audio overviews. I've got an audio overview here from a couple of things. Again, I'll just tick the BCM reference guide here and go generate audio overview, and effectively it will create me a podcast from that 200 odd page PDF document. No one likes to read a 200-page PDF, but if you can turn that into a podcast, put it on your stereo and go for a run, something like that, or just take it in the car, absolutely fantastic. Also, even better, you can actually interact with it. So if we go into interactive mode and press play.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
So whether you are prepping for a major infrastructure meeting or maybe trying to catch up on high performance...
Oh, hey there, how can we help?
Hi, can you just tell me exactly the role of a head node?
Hi there, that is a fantastic question.
Welcome aboard. We absolutely can.
The head node is, simply put, the brain of the cluster.
Okay, let's unpack this.
If you are looking at the administrator manual, the head node is where all the services run.
It's the central point of command.
It does housekeeping tasks for the entire...
Interesting. So absolutely fantastic. Absolutely love Notebook LM to bits. Again, you can create flashcards. I've got some flashcards I created from the BCM reference material earlier. I'll go into my flashcards. Again, I just ticked the source that I wanted to reference, create some flashcards. So you can see here, it's generated me 50 flashcards, and I can just go through them. So what is the software image context of BCM? And you can just go, say answer, and then just go through the lot. Test yourself, you can regenerate them. You'll probably find different ones each time, but absolutely fantastic. So yeah, can't recommend Notebook LM enough. Set up all your notebooks today.
Okay, so the next tip would be plan your study time. Probably my biggest challenge is finding time to study. I've got generally a very busy job, so evenings tend to work best for me. And again, I try and be quite intelligent around that. If I know 40% of the blueprint is on a particular topic, I'll generally plan 40% of my study time around that particular topic. Again, use your own judgment. If it's a topic you know well anyway, there's probably times you can dedicate more study time to other areas you maybe don't know so well. You might be lucky. You might be in a job that will actually support you in your study and give you actually study time off. So that's all the better. And again, it really helps if you love what you're studying, you're passionate about what you're studying. And if you're not passionate about it, try and get passionate about it. Set yourself little small measurable goals. Like say, you know what, today I'm going to learn InfiniBand, and set that goal and learn it. And my last tip is know your enemy. Not that the exam's your enemy, but again, you need to know what's in that exam, that you've targeted your study well. So I'm going to pop up on the screen just to break down pie charts of what's in each of the exams. You've got the network, the AI ops, and the AI infrastructure. So again, just be aware of the proportion of that exam and which is dedicated to each particular subject. So I think that about covers it for this video. Again, if there's anything I haven't mentioned that you think other people would benefit from, absolutely please put it down in the comments, and I look forward to reading them. And good luck in your studies.